I am so glad to be the moderator for this panel. I always begin these things without remembering that I should introduce myself. So I'll just say that I'm Admay. I'm a human rights lawyer from South Africa and now from North Carolina. And it really is my great delight to serve as the Duke faculty co-director with my friend Suzanne Maman of the Duke-UNC Center, and to be the moderator of this beautiful closing panel. So our panel, which is called From Self to Society, over the next little while, we will be thinking together about the conference's themes as a whole, from self to society, envisioning our relationship to peace. What beautiful visions, ideas turned into illuminating metaphors, both Chone and Alex have offered us. Poets have a way of helping us understand and feel deeply with just a few words and key images. Poet, policy analyst, and painter, Chone, offered us the image of a sturdy two-way track-foot bridge, helping everyone on that trail, whichever direction they might be coming from, to get across the divide. Those gorgeous paintings, the one that particularly touched my heart is of the morning light filtering through the big trees, reaching the saplings of the undergrowth with what Alex calls warmth and clarity. Poet, social worker, Alex, and almost so many more things, offered us two images to think about the ways we might be bearing our light. So she asked us, when are we acting as flashlights? Being from South Africa, I still call them torches. And when as lanterns, right? So, my goodness, come on, paper. When do we really need to flop down on the therapy couch, quite literally, for the metaphor girl, quite literally, to gather ourselves? So our panel is about two ideas that relate deeply to each other, healing and relationship. Alex called on us to think seriously about healing. In order for us actually to do peace work out in the world, we must first gather our own peace, holding it in our own hearts, minds, and bodies here in our inner world. Bring the front lines of peace building back to ourselves first. So her words about the neurology of healing will sound very familiar to the parents who have had good parenting training. This is me. When our children throw tantrums, much as that might actually throw us into a tantrum, we too must know how to skillfully manage our response. We must be regulated to help them regulate. This foundational truth shapes our professional worlds too. Our strength to support others comes from our strength. How many of us have heard the phrase, physician, heal thyself? Chone evokes the power and beauty of relationship. Much as he loved the pristine forest in his well-worn giant book on national parks, he came to understand these forests were the dwelling place of indigenous peoples and that he would love the forests so much better if that relationship between indigenous people and their homes was not summarily cut. What if the relationship was carefully understood and honored? Because Chone honors the many communities of indigenous people with whom he has kept company, he has come into relationship with these people and they with him, the small two-way footbridge. These two driving ideas, healing and relationship, are connected to self and society because we will not be in right relationship with others, society, if we are not in right relationship with ourselves, self. We can be part of repairing the world, Tikkun Olam in Yiddish, because we are familiar with repairing ourselves. Embedded in the poetics Alex and Chone have offered us is also a very social science concept. I'm often criticized for being too humanities as a lawyer, so I'm adding some social science here. The theory of change. A theory of change is our theory of how change comes about. By what mechanisms is the status quo moved? We saw that Alex's slide of the interconnected gears. Her theory of change is illustrated by the move from a single Gerber daisy to a handful of Gerber daisies, to a bouquet of flowers. If we change ourselves, we set in motion larger changes in the world. Alex's words bear repeating. Instead of wanting the world to change, we can be the change we want to see in the world. Chone's theory of change turns on the idea of shifting the narrative. Thai policy around conservation and governance will change when Thai citizens reject the narrative they've been socialized to accept. If Chone can come to see the core mistake and injustice of fortress conservation that values the beauty of pristine forests over the beauty of the practice of justice in these forests, then other Thai citizens can too. He can be one footbridge to other Thai citizens explaining how conservation coexists with honoring Indigenous peoples, one person at a time. The narrative around the appropriate policy framework for national parks and natural conservation will shift. I don't know about you, but I do a lot of podcasts. And in the TED Radio Hour podcast, How to Citizen, that came out in October of 2022, the marvelous writer and comedian, a man named Baratunde Rafiq Thurston, put it this way: we can change the action, which changes the story, which changes the system. Systems are just collective stories we all buy into. When we change them, we write a better reality for us all to be a part of. In other words, each of us change the acceptable storyline by what storyline we ourselves accept and what storylines we refashion. So as with the other panels, I will start with three questions to Alex and Chone, and then we'll ask for audience questions. So, no. So I'm going to start with you, Chone. And you both know what I'm going to end with as a question, but this is the opening one for Chone. So, Chone, as you know, in development practice, practitioners encourage the each one teach one method as part of our theory of social change. So, for example, when a family learns how to hang insecticide-treated bed nets effectively, they then teach other families. Can you say more about the way you offer what you have learned to other Thai people who haven't yet had the experiences you've had with Indigenous peoples, the each one teach one methodology? How actually do you go about helping to change the narrative?
Well, I have to say that this is not just one-time action, because you're not just telling people to, okay, you clean your hand and you will save from the bacteria.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to talk with, what I usually talk with people is kind of change the way they think about things their whole life. They're growing up learning about this for their whole life at school, at the school, from mass media. So I would say I have to understand each different group. If I talk to my friends who have a basic understanding about social injustice, that I can go deeper into detail, presenting with information. But then if I talk to my parents who know nothing about this issue and still seeing like opposite to what I see, it's going to be another level. But I'm not debating with them in terms of I'm right, they're wrong, but I offer this is another perspective. See, this is a history that we never learned at school. See, this is another practice from other countries. So I think what I've done through my professional capacity, also at personal level, like sharing on my social media platform or whatever, it just by understanding who are you talking to and not going in a way that preaching people, but offering the other way to see things. I'm not sure, is it concrete or?
That's beautiful. Right.
Thank you.
Very lovely. It's really lovely. Okay. So I was so impressed with Erica's question, and I've been so lucky to sit next to the person I sat next to today, honestly. and all day long, my friend has been saying, wow. And this time with Erica's question, she was like, that's the right question. And I was like, you know what? You are so right. So I'm going to ask the same question. I actually had different ones, but so for you, Alex and Chone, I'm going to ask both of you, in our conference today about self and society, so much of what you've written about is self. And it would be really nice for our audience here to understand you, right? To understand what builds yourself. So I wonder if you could speak, both of you, to the sources of energy and motivation that help you be such beautiful selves.
Thank you for the question, Erica/Admay. I feel so much hope. And that's a feeling of hope that has really grown and deepened over the past 2 years of study. I see the relationships that I have in my life as a great source of hope. The friendships that I have, the incredible people that I work alongside, my family relationships, my team relationships, my professors and mentors and people that support me along the way. The quality of these relationships and the depth and the sharing and the mutual support and the kindness is something that really fills me with so much hope. When I see the ways that we can navigate our conflicts, when I see the ways that we can support each other, when I see the ways that we can reimagine what it's like to show up for each other, that's to me is what we do on the small scale sets the pattern for the whole system. So there are so many examples of relationships in my life that I derive a great sense of depth and excitement and hope from. And relationality is an infinite quality, right? You can never have too much of it. It's always there. You can always have more. So I think there's just limitless sources for hope and inspiration.
All right, Chone. At the end of the day, we can clap, right? Can you talk about your beautiful self and where it comes from?
Maybe not beautiful. But I would say what keeps me motivated is the frustration. The frustration about how Thai society, we share it so much about people who has everything already. I mean, I think it's a mentality of a lot of Thai person who always feel so proud about serving people who have so much already, but look down on those who has been marginalized. That's my mentality. I think this is not right. People, ethnic minorities, people with disability in Thailand, they've been mocked about, nobody cared about it. And that's not fair. That was something drive me. And we need to change this narrative that, you guys, why are you proud about serving those rich people? Why don't you proud about, helping those who are, lack opportunity, lack access to basic services. So that drive me to work on this. As you said, as we learned from your class, you are not free if nobody is free, right?
Fannie Lou Hamer. I
How you
love
said
it.
you never, what is it?
No one is free until we're
No
all
one
free.
is free until everyone is free.
Yeah, that's it. Doesn't have to be exactly right. You got the right idea.
Thank you.
I'm with everybody else here who says that these students are such a source of richness and beauty in our lives. And honestly, it means so much to me to have these two. I got lucky for this panel, I know. So thank you very much for all that you have done for the people and all the classes that you've been in. You've enriched so many people and in our auditorium here today too. So rather than taking up all the time, I'd really like to, before I see from Susan, we should have a lot of minutes to get some questions. So I'll first look for people here with us, and then I'll ask John for the online questions. Do we have any to start with? I see you, and then I see you. So in the middle.
Okay. Hi, I'm Renee, and first of all, this is my first peace conference, and woo, wow, wow, I will be.
Wow.
My question is this: we talk a lot about reflection, peace building, looking inside ourselves to see how we can find solutions using the mirror. How can we translate that into our clubs and our districts? How can we teach our members to do that? Because as a current DG, and I know anyone else in here who's been in my position in this room, the biggest issues we have to deal with are interpersonal relationships. Really, that is the crux of our job. And in order to be more effective for our communities, we need peace within our clubs.
Yeah.
How do we use this model, this lamplight model, this footbridge model? How do we incorporate that into a program for our clubs? If you guys could like make that your think tank thing, that would be so awesome. Thank you.
Are you inviting them to come to your club? Do you guys want to start? Chone, do you want to start first?
Maybe it's more related to,
Well,
Alex-
I think this launches our official consultancy business. Well, maybe I would say that many of us, probably nearly everyone in this room in different ways, has been taught that conflict is terrifying. For many people in this room, conflict is about life or death. And for those of us who have been privileged to grow up in societies where war hasn't been happening in front of us, conflict is often something that is frightening, something to be avoided, something to turn away from at all costs. But in fact, in the words of Martin Luther King, it's not the absence of conflict that generates peace. And in fact, conflict can be productive and can be generative and can deepen relationships when managed skillfully and in a regulated and attuned way. Of course, that's a huge ask for all of us who have been taught to turn away from conflict very quickly. So I think there is a couple of pieces to that. One is familiarizing ourselves with this notion that conflict isn't always bad, and particularly when held and supported in safe and calm spaces. Conflict can be challenging, but it also presents an opportunity for a repair. And in that repair exists a lot of hope, a lot of connection. We often say it's not the absence of conflict that predicts healthy relationships, it's actually the ability to repair after conflict that says a lot more about those relationships. As a social worker, I would say a really good place to start is running through a set of reflective questions. What feelings does this conflict bring up in me? Where have I seen this before in my life? Why does this feel familiar, or does it feel familiar? Who is this about? Is this about them, or is this about me? So running through some of these reflective questions helps ground us and situate us in our own ability to interact in a much more calm and regulated way. And when we do that, we provide a space and an opening for the repair, and that's where the magic happens.
Unfortunately, I've also gotten the sign that we have only 5 minutes. So can I get one question from online? And then Gideon, can you run up to this Rotarian so she gets a chance? So first, the online question.
Yeah, you both talk about stories we tell about ourselves and that's how we define how we live. And so, for example, in Thailand, it's the story that we should take this national forest and the benefits of that, but it ignores the people in it. And then you also spoke about how we have the story about ourselves that we can do it all, or we can stick someone else before we look at ourselves. So I'd wondered if you both have an example of where you see, both in the national forest situation or in a community in conflict, where they both took the steps to do it differently that you would point to as a model.
Nice question. Thank you, online audience.
I can take that. There's so many models that has been started as an alternative to very strict national park that's allow Indigenous people and local community to take the leadership role in managing the park. But the problem is that it's hard to scale up, especially in those areas that I work on. There's some geopolitics involved in here. As you know that the western part of Thailand is close to Myanmar border, where the civil conflict is going on. So Thai government always use the national security reason, try not to give authority or give more participation for the local community in the forest area. So even though we have a really nice model allowing for co-management of natural resources, but yeah, politics always hamper the progress of doing that. But I would say that through the Paris Agreement, through the biodiversity conservation convention, there's a consensus that engaging local community and indigenous people is the way forward. It's a consensus in the global stage at the local level, but the politics is something that really make it go slowly.
Alex, you've got 1 minute.
Okay. I do a lot of work with galleries and museums, and they often are looking for ways to communicate better to their audiences. And when I come to work with them, they often say, we want to get things right for our audience. Help us do it better for our audience. And my work is always, hold on a minute. Let's come back to your team. If you guys can get things right in here in your team, if you can have challenging conversations with each other, if you can explore this historical material from multiple viewpoints, if you can hold each other through some of the challenges, if you can create shared spaces of reflective practice, the audience will experience that. Focus less on them and more on you and the benefits. 100%. This is the best way to do it. The benefits will be experienced by the audience.
I am so sorry. I tried to cue you up, but you know, Rotary runs on time. It's because we have relationships that we want to stay in good relationship with. So let me just say, I hope everybody today takes in your heart that picture of the radiating lantern and that beautiful footbridge that goes both ways. And I just want to say thank you so much for all the lanterns in this beautiful hallway, as well as the footbridges, and especially thank you to you who've lifted this up for us to think about. Thank you so much, Chone and Alex. Love you.